Hello YouTube and hello Ninth Age community. This is Charles Zurshid Gaming and I've got another Ninth Age battle report for you. So I just went to Battlecry this weekend, had a wonderful time. Thank you Mince for hosting a fantastic event. I just want to go over my list in a little full detail. I think it's an interesting list. It's got a lot of synergies, which is important for Empress Sonnstahl. So I'm going to kind of do a deep dive into it for this first video on my first run of Battlecry. And then after that, I probably won't cover it in much detail, but I haven't quite played this list before in any of my other battle reports, so I'd like to give a full review of it real quick before I kind of look at my opponent's list and then talk about the first round. So let's look at my list. So Charles Sadler II's Battlecry 4500 Empire Sonnstahl list. I actually had the crazy idea to hand this full thing over to my opponents. Thankfully, some of my boys at Evershade Gaming talked me out of it. But it's actually going to be really helpful for talking about everything that's kind of going on in this list. And I think most Empire Sonnstahl players will be familiar with this, but for anyone else who watches, who's not an Empire player, I think this will be really helpful. So my general is a knight commander on a horse. He's got a shield with the potion of swiftness, the light of the Sonnstahl. That's all hits wound automatically, no armor saves. I wish no saves of any kind. That'd be too good. And then he also has the Witchfire Guard, which is a nice 4-up Aegis save against magical attacks. My marshal is a BSB on a horse. He's got great tactician, so he can give 2 orders out a turn. He's got a shield, the banner speed, and the stalker standard. And then I have a prelate on a horse. He's got plate armor shield, so he gets a 1-up. He's got the death warrant, lucky charm, and obsidian rock. So little MR. And then I have a wizard on cosmology, and he's got light armor, wizard master, riding an arcane engine with the arcane shield that gives distracting, and it has the bound spell that gives you perception of strength from cosmology. Then I also have the basalt infusion and the magical heirloom and the talisman shielding. And then I have 15 electoral cavalry with full command, knightly orders, lance, shield, and they have the aether icon. Then I have 20 light infantry, full command as well. Champion's got a long rifle, and then I have a standard bearer with a marksman pendant, kind of that really nice light infantry build. And that actually makes my car perfect at 1125 too, so I really enjoy that. And then I have 2 things in the Knights of Sun Griffin. Both have musicians. They both replace their halberds with lances because that's the best way to run them. And then 2 things of 5 riders, so a little chaff, and a steam tank. And then it rounds out right at 44.99. So really the important synergies in this list is the way the knight commander interacts with the electoral, or really the knightly orders. And that, so when he's joined with them and he's the general, not only do they become fearless, which is just generally nice, but they also become a parent unit, so they can take orders. That's the big thing, really. That's what makes this list work, actually. The blessing, the prelate's great because he gives them hatred. He's got the death warrant, so every time he hits a unit, with hatred, so he usually almost always hits. I get battle focus on my knights, which is great. Battle focus on strength against attacks is really good. The distracting is kind of just generally nice. It's not even that huge. Thankfully, that night bus is really long the way I ran it all weekend, so it was really easy always to have it give it distracting. And then, so the orders. The biggest order really is on the double and brace for impact for the knights. I have some light infantry, so I was able to give them accurate for many different games so that they could really help me clear chaff and stuff. But on the double to give me advanced 9 is awesome, and then the fight next to rank is really awesome too. And then my shooting's pretty light in this list. I just have 20 crossbow shots, I have the steam tank, and then I have some little bit of rider shot. My magic isn't light. It's not super heavy though. I think 5 spells, 4 from cosmology, and then either fireball, know thy enemy, or alchemy is pretty good. Quicksilver Lash is pretty good. It's nothing crazy though. And the bounce spells and the perception of strength is pretty cool. I tried a few times this tournament weekend, and you'll kind of see that in some future battle reports to make sure I can get the double buffs off, the double perception of strength off, either for double hex or double buff. and hopefully I'll be able to show when that happens. So yeah, really the big thing about this list is just the way the characters interact with the big block of knights. Yeah, and they do have some good synergies with some of the spells from cosmology. Like Perception of Strength is nice on them. If you're going against like something that's really in 6, and then even the next round they're Strength 5 knights. So, but yeah, the big thing to know is the Knight Commander, Parent Unit, Orders, in that order. All right, so let's look at my opponent's list. My opponent round 1 was Lance Grew, and he was bringing his Orcs and Goblins. We actually did a little bit of a club kind of grudge match. The Detroit 9th Age Club versus the East Coast Warriors. And I got matched up with Lance. So he brought his Orcs and Goblins. He's got a Feral Orc Shaman, the General. Wizard Master with Shamanism. Got the Magical Heirloom and the Crown of Autocracy. Then he has a Forest Goblin King on a Gargantula with paired weapons, the Hero's Heart. The Crown of the Wizard King, it's a double crown list, and Dragonstaff. He's got 2 Goblin Chiefs on a Goblin Wolf Chariot with lances. I think maybe just light lances. And then he has a Feral Orc Chief BSB with the Pain and Protection Pension Great Weapons. Or Great Weapon. 20 Feral Orcs with Shields, Champion Standard. 55 Forest Goblins with Shield Standard in the Greentine banner. And then 56 Forest Goblins with Spears and Shields, Standard in the Greentine banner. So a lot of attacks from those goblins. And then 20 Forest Goblins with throwing weapons and the creeping upgrade. That gives them the skirmish ability. 4 Skewers and 2 Nasharrekantines and 2 Giants with clubs. This is just a picture of the army that I took. I was pretty pleasantly surprised with how everything came together. I was able to update all my unit trays the week before. I thought it was looking pretty good. It's probably one of my favorite armies I've ever taken to a tournament, honestly. And this is the front rank of my knights. Really happy to get all these guys kind of put together too and painted and based. Got my Knight Commander on the left right there. Got my Prowler right in the middle. And I got my BSB on the right. So, round 1 of Battlecry. We played a Refused Flank and Spoils of War. And this is our table. Nice snowy table. And that's all our terrain. So, on my side, I've got like a rune. I've got a couple walls. And I don't really think there's much in my corner, because this was actually a map for Refused Flank. Because the Turban organizer just kind of gave different tables, different maps from the map pack. But we ended up actually getting a Refused Flank, so that's why all the terrain is pretty close to the center of the board. So let's start looking at deployment. First things first, let's talk about spells. From the Crown of the Wizard King, he got the Know Thy Enemy from Divination. And then from Cosmology, I took Altered Sight, Ice and Fire, Perception of Strength, and Touch of the Heart. Kind of wanted a lot of damage spells, so I also took Fireball from Pyromancy. And then my opponent from Shamanism took Awaken the Beast, Swarm of Insects, Savage Fury, and Break the Spirit, and Bring the Pain. You have to say, I really like the synergy between Bring the Pain and Savage Fury. It's really cool how Orc and Goblin players can put battle focus on their units and then also give themselves like reroll to hit. It's a very solid combination. So this is looking at my deployment. We traded only a couple drops before I felt pretty confident just to pretty much drop everything else. I think I actually let my opponent start deploying first, and he could put a bolt thrower down. And I was like, oh, okay. So I actually responded with my crossbows. I think he put another bolt thrower down, and then I was like, And I just put everything else down, kind of confident that my crossbows were going to have something to shoot at turn 1. So starting on the right of this picture, we've got my 20 crossbows. In front of them are some riders. And then I have my knights and my Wizard Master on his Arcane Engine, all in those runes, just for the hardcover, really. And, my knights have the Strider banner from my BSB, so they don't really care about terrain either. Then I have 4 Knights of Sun Griffin in the middle, kind of support my Knight block. My Steam Tank, middle-ish, nice independent piece next to some riders. And then on my kind of the left of this picture, my far right flank, I have 3 Knights of Sun Griffin. They're pretty much just looking at that objective right in front of them. And this is my opponent's deployment. So yeah, he started with those 2 bolt throwers on the left there. in this picture, and I kind of, once I saw a bolt thrower or two, I was like, huh, I didn't think he would put them all down there, but I thought, like, well, that'll give me a couple targets turn one if, like, his Nash wrecking teams are farther away or something like that. So I felt pretty confident to, deploy, and he kind of continued deploying, from that way. He put his creeping forest goblins near his bolt throwers, kind of support them. He's got his 2 Nashers behind that hill, so I can't really do too much to them turn one. And then he's got all of his big blocks of troops kind of a little bit farther back, more farther than I expected. And then he's got the 2 elephants in the middle right there are his wolf chariots. My opponent has a wonderfully themed army. It's like an Arabian themed Orc and Goblin army. So he's got like all these elephants all over the place. You'll see more pictures as we keep going through. But honestly, just an incredibly well themed army. His giants are those genies on the right of this picture. So his middle is chariots, genies, and then he's got his forest goblin king and the gargantula kind of basically going to try and hold down what would be my right flank, trying to beat my right flank. And over there, I really just have the steam tank and the knights. And the knights can't really take a gargantula on. They'll just lose that grind. So very interesting deployment. Yeah, I was kind of really excited for this battle, so let's get right into it. Turn 1. Actually, these are vanguards, so I don't think I captured my vanguards quite well, but I just vanguard the riders next to my steam tank behind that wall, and then I vanguard my other riders to the left to try and go after both the skewers. Yep, there we go. That's a better picture of my vanguards. So yeah, it's turn 1, Empire of the Sonnstahl. So one of my riders goes as far over as possible. They're going to shoot a couple shots to that bolt thrower. Not going to kill it, obviously, but just kind of weaken it so that I can hopefully charge it next turn and hopefully take off a couple skewers and then cause some trouble really on that flank there. And then my steam tank kind of surges forward to kind of face down that gargantula. It's really the only thing over there that can take it on. And I don't mind that fight. I'm glad he doesn't have a great weapon, so I think the steam tank can at the very least hold it up for a long time. If not, maybe outgrind it. And then don't really move up my center too much. I don't really want to move out of the runes with my knights. I don't want to eat 4 skewers turn 1. That's just not good for knights. So I get Flux Card 8, which is great. I save only 1 token, so I cashed in 3 dice. I got Altered Sight off on Cosmos, so Duality goes to Chaos, which is great. And then I throw a Touch of the Heart, and I just barely get it off, needing that 6 on the Chaos. And I do wound to one of his Goblin Wolf Chariots. And then I also got Ice and Fire off on Chaos too. It was kind of a low roll, or it was like an 11 on 3 dice, and he had about 4 dice left, but he failed to dispel it. But I only do 2 wounds, so he kind of lucks out there. I got 7 hits, and I did 4 wounds. He made 2 armor saves, and then he made I think he made 2 armor saves, and then he made 2 more. So in the shooting phase, my light infantry with crossbows shoot at the goblin skirmishers, and oh man, it was just a big whiff fest. Because they have hard target because they're skirmishers and everything. But I was needing 4s with accurate, and I just missed. I just couldn't hit anything. I only got 4 hits and did 2 wounds, so I was really hoping to cause a panic test here, but I couldn't quite get it. And that's what it's looking like at the end of Emperor Sonnstahl turn 1. Orcs and Goblins turn 1. The Gargantula and the Genie giant charge me. He wanted to use his war cry. I think the giant was a little far away, and the spider needed maybe like an 8 or 7. So he just kind of reduced both of those, gave the giant Swift Stride, and they both made it in. So it worked for him because that's a tough fight right there. The Nasher Wrecking teams both move forward. One moves only up like 7, the other moves up like 14. I think the one in the back, for the one further back, moves up closer. That's random movement for you. And then it's just a general pick of how the rest of his army moved. So, we're kind of playing around in the middle there between his goblin chariots and his other giant. He's got his goblin skirmishers on my left flank. They're going to go after those riders this turn. I was not happy about that. And yeah, his big block of troops, they're just starting to surge forward. He gets Flux Card 8 as well. He saves 2 Veil tokens. He throws Break the Spirit to my Riders. I kind of let this go off because I'm thinking, like, they're probably going to die. And I'm not sure -1 to hits really going to be that big of a difference. And they did end up just dying. So, yeah, that was the only spell he got off. And there's just a picture. That's his goblin skirmishers, actually. They're actually monkeys. And they fling poop. So, it was quite insulting, but quite hilarious at the same time to see my riders get killed by poop-flinging goblin monkeys. And then one of his bolt throwers does hit turn 1, and it puts 2 wounds in the Knights of Sun Griffin. And then combat. This was incredible. So the first thing to go is the Goblin King, and I think he does 1 wound to me with his Hero's Heart, because he does have AP 3. The next thing goes up is the Gargantula. It hits with all of his attacks. I save the multi-wound, because he got a poison on the multi-wound too. So like first thing I roll is I save that. I was like, whew, got that out of the way. And then he wounds with like 2 or 3 of his 7 other hits, and I save all those. And then the giant whiffs, only gets like 1 hit, 1 wound, and I save that too. I go next. I go last to the steam tank, and I do 5 wounds to the giant with my grinds and my breath weapon. And I win combat by like 4. The giant flees, and then the Gargantula also fails its break test, and it flees too. They both rolled. He rolled a 10 on his discipline twice, which the giant needed like a 5, but the Gargantula needed like an 8. So just unfortunately bad rolls there for my opponent, and the Gargantula is going to flee off the board, but the giant just barely stays on. He needed like an 11. The Gargantula only needed like a 5 or a 6 or something. It's, you know, it's so wide. So, big turn for me here. This basically opens up that flank. So that's the end of Orcs and Goblins turn 1. Going into Empire Sonnstahl turn 1. Now my steam tank's free just to go right in that middle and start harassing those goblin chariots and that other giant. I feel a little more courageous to bring the Knights of the Sun Griffin up. I'm still kind of holding back my big body of knights. You know, they had such a long reach, I didn't really feel like I needed to start risking a lot of this one. It was early in the game. And then I moved my small unit of Knights of Sun Griffin on one of the objective markers. I thought about just chasing the genie off, but then I thought I could probably just go kill him next turn anyway. So, and then I can definitely be picking up the objective marker on my next turn. So that's what I wanted to do. And yeah, the crossbows, they receive Steady Man and Accurate, Ready and Fire. I threw a fireball at the far Nasher Wrecking team. My goal was to fireball this and then hit the other one with the D3 attribute, see if I can, you know, like get some crazy luck, but he stops it. Then I do an Ice and Fire at the closer one, because that was the one in range, and I kill it. And I'm on Chaos Duality. And then I shoot with my light infantry at the other one. They didn't even have Altered Sight, but, you know, I mean, 20 shots. Just need 3 wounds, and I was able to get them on that last Nash Wrecking team. So that was really good. Turn 2, just to be able to get rid of all of those. And I also moved my riders up and fired 5 pistol shots at that last Goblin Wolf dude and killed him too. Just because I figured, I mean, he's actually a little bit cheaper than the riders, but it didn't really seem like a bad kind of waste of points just to do that real quick. It actually panics one of the skiers too, so that was kind of extra nice. This is just some pics. His army just looked fantastic. Just so well themed. These are like the goblins with spears. Those are his goblins with like swords and shields, and his orcs. His shaman is there on the left in the corner of the unit. Very cool model. And then he's got like some dwarf BSB. I didn't even notice this on our game, but he's got like a couple dwarves like kind of serving this army. It's intriguing. But I love those orcs too. They look so good with the Ottoman hats. They look great. So, Orcs and Goblins turn 2, he decides to charge the riders with this genie, and I flee about 11 or 12 inches. And then, so I'm right there in front of that other goblin, and if you can kind of see it actually quite well, the genie is in the flank of my steam tank, but my steam tank didn't move past that building. So he actually couldn't complete that charge right there, because he can't fit on my corner of my flank and really do any proper wheeling. So the giant actually couldn't charge the steam tank. So what ends up happening is the Goblin Wolf Chariot charges the riders, and they flee through everything, and they take one wound through going through the rune. And then both units redirect into my Knights of Sun Griffin, and both of them make it. So the giant had a pretty long charge. I think he needed like a 9 or a 10. And the Wolf Chariot was, I think it needed like a 10, but that was on Swiss Stride. So, yeah, so they both make it in. Not great fight for the Knights of Sun Griffin, but we'll see what we can do. And this is the rest of my opponent's move. He does rally with his other genie. So my Knights of Sun Griffin will have to go fight them. The Goblin Skirmishers on the left man the wall, so it's going to be hard for my crossbows to try and get rid of them next turn. And then, yeah, he just kind of he keeps moving up with his big blocks. He gets Flux card 7, and he saves 3 Veil tokens. He throws a Swarm of Insects on my crossbows to reduce their effectiveness next round as well. He does get 2 wounds off on him. And he gets Break the Spirit off on my Knights of Sun Griffin, which was rough. I think I just couldn't stop this. I tried, but I think because he was out of range of most of his other big buffs, and I think I just kind of whiffed my roll. A skewer between I think like 1 or 2 skewers, he puts 3 wounds on the steam tank. And then in combat, the impact hits go first, and he does I think 2 wounds. Yeah, because I had 2 wounds on the unit, and he does 2, so he takes the Knights of Sun Griffin off. Then the Goblin goes next, Simo with the Knights of Sun Griffin, and he does a wound. And we kill the Goblin, we put 2 wounds on him. And then the Giant goes, and he hits pretty well this time, and he does like another wound or 2, and leaves me with 5 wounds left on the unit, and they flee, but the Giant does not catch them. And at the start of Empire Sonnstahl, turn 3, I rally my Knights and I rally my Riders. Got some. I think the Knights needed a 12, no reroll, but the Riders had the 9 with the Knights of Sun Griffin needed a 9, no reroll. The Riders had both BSB and the General's Discipline, which is good. And this is how we move. So we charge the Giant up top. The steam tank comes. I kind of want to just. I really wasn't expecting this Giant to get like in my deployment zone, and like my Knights aren't like turn to really deal with it. So I really bring a lot of things over to just deal with this Giant, because this is turn 3, and I'm thinking I have a lot of time left in this game, or I'm thinking I have a lot of turns left. But we actually were starting to run a little low on time. So I got Flux card 2. I got Ice and Fire off on the Genie, and that does 2 wounds. And then I also hit him with a Perception of Strength to reduce his strength. Steam Tank fires, does 3 wounds. I thought that was incredible. That's pretty good. And then my Knights of Sun Griffins over here have no problem killing. Putting 2 wounds on that last Genie was cake work for these boys. So they just turn to face those bolt throwers. So on Orcs and Goblins turn 3, the Giant charges into my Knights of Sun Griffin. Kind of just hoping, I kind of hit him with the Perception of Strength, hoping that he wouldn't hit very well, and then maybe I could make some saves. Hopefully just keep like 1 wound alive on him, because I think I can do the 2 wounds pretty easily, between the Griff attacks, honestly. Because I just need to do 2 wounds on a 4-up. So I'm hoping just to kill him and be alive on like 1 or 2 wounds, just to kind of have more scoring, keep that scoring alive. He gets a Swarm of Insects off on my Riders, but it doesn't do any wounds, so that was quite nice actually. And then he hits me with the Break the Spirit on these guys. I kind of think I let that go because he was actually in range for more buffs. These guys move forward and they do like 8 wounds to me. Those were rough. And then what ends up happening between the Giant and the Sun Griffin, they just explode on each other. I kill the Giant, but the Giant does the rest of the wound. I think he had like 10 attacks. So he had 10 attacks and he needed to do 5 wounds. And I think he did 5 or 6, and I think I just made like 1 save or something. I just couldn't make enough saves. So Emperor Sonnstahl turn 4. I might have missed capturing this, but he actually brought some goblins up on a marker, and I decided, all right, that's it. It's time to go forward.
charge my knights out at them, and then actually charge my crossbowmen at the monkeys. Only because I'm thinking like, 11 shots isn't enough probably at this point to do all that much. They might not even panic, and then they'll just shoot me off. I'm like, I actually have a little better of a chance in combat, so I throw my guys into there. And then I move my riders and I move my steam tank up. Steam tank can threaten the flank of those goblins next turn, and then the riders can go after those bolt throwers. I get perception of strength off on the crosswind just to really try and nail home this combat. I really want to break these guys and get them to flee right in front of that other big block of goblins, just to tie those goblins up so I don't even have to worry about them, because they are in my flank, but they're like 15 inches, 14 inches away, which is just a long charge. So hopefully I can break these guys and get them in there. But then we go into combat and I just whiff again with these guys. I'm like hitting on threes, winning on threes, and I just do 2 wounds. I think I only hit like 3 times or something. It was just like a bad roll to hit. Like, well, a bunch of 1s and 2s. He goes next and he kills 4. And I think it ends up being a tie combat with my charge banner and 2 wounds to his 4 wounds. So that was whatever, I guess. And then going into this combat, I mean, I kill a bunch of goblins, but there's a lot of goblins, and not quite able to do as much as I needed. I needed to do 1, 2, 3, 4. I needed to do 5 more wounds, and then we would have been. No, I needed to do way more than that. Yeah, he's got 3 full rank. Never mind. I needed to do like 10 more wounds. So unfortunately, I couldn't do that. So he ends up sticking, and he reforms like this. And then on his turn, he debated a while if he wanted to try and risk a long charge. And I think after we reformed and everything, it became like a 15. It was just barely a 14, and it was 15 once he kind of reformed, and he allowed me to scooch over a little more too. So he ended up deciding just playing it safe and just kind of moving forward, because this is his turn 4. We had enough time for turn 5, and that's probably all we were going to get. He gets Flux Card 4. He gets Awaken the Beast off for toughness on these guys. That was a good call. Makes it a little bit harder for me to do more damage. And then he does another wound to the Bolt Thrower. I think he is really targeting this guy now. And I think he just unfortunately missed and didn't wound, but 1 got through, and it only did 1 wound. I do another 2 wounds to the monkeys. They do 3 wounds to me, so I actually tie combat with my banner. Yeah, it's just getting really tight now. We'll see if these guys can make it. He reforms so that I can't remove his attacks at all. It's very smart on him. And then going into this combat, not a very strong showing. I think the Awaken the Beast definitely hurt me. Obviously, the parry's hurting me too. So I'm not chewing through these guys as fast as I thought I would, and he does a wound to me, but so we just stay there. So Emperor Sonnstahl, turn 5, bring the steam tank in. I'm like gonna really want to break these goblins, and then I'm just moving my Knights to Sun Griffin behind the building, and I got my riders into the combat with the bolt thrower, so I'll be able to probably get that second bolt thrower too. Not that that's many points, but it actually really protects my riders from any shots turn 5 to try and make them drop the objective marker. I get Flux Card 7. I get Touch of the Heart on the steam tank, take a wound off. I thought that was great. Perception and Strength on Knights, very nice for that +1 strength. And then I put these orders at the beginning of the round. Brace for Impact, Steadyman. Just want to take a picture of them now. I go in and I do 3 wounds with my riders. That's enough to break him, and I go into the second bolt thrower. And then this was the biggest thing that happened was I lose 1 knight, and I needed to do 1 more wound to him. So he ends up being steadfast still. Oh. He only did I think he just did 6 or 5 wounds or something like that. He had a pretty poor roll, but I rolled that 1/1 he needed, and he doesn't break from combat. And then so that's what he's looking like. And then I do actually break these guys this round, pretty amazingly. He just kind of finally kind of whiffed on wounding me with like 5 or 6 attacks. I did like a couple, like maybe like a wound. Actually, I don't even think I think I just won by the banner. Banner guy's waving around. He just breaks him from combat, which is great. And these guys flee right here. And then on his turn 5, the goblins with spears come into the flank of the knights. So now we got a real fight on our hands. He gets flux card 5, which I was grateful for that. Doesn't really give him a lot of dice. He gets Savage Fury off on his big goblins with spears, and I stop, I think, the strength buff. I think he threw 3 and 3, and I stopped the strength buff, and then he got Savage Fury off. I'd say it might have been 4 and 4, and then he got this off on 2 or something like that, because it's a 5. The monkeys end up rallying too, which was the biggest insult. And then these 2 bolt throwers, turn 5, both just they were in my crossbows were in their fronts, and he hits twice and he wounds twice, and he just kills both guys, just to get all their points on his last turn, which is incredible. The riders killed a bolt thrower. And then in this combat, oh my, the knights just wake up, I swear. I do like 16 wounds between all my stuff. Just like, like the knights on the side are killing goblins. The knights forward are just like, they're like, oh, like, okay guys, come on, let's rally. Like my BSB kills like 3 goblins. Because I still got perception of strength up, which is great. And it's still distracting on my knights too, so I just kill a ton. I don't even think he gets any of my knights this round. The small unit of goblin breaks, but the big one in my flank stays. And this is where we actually end the game, because we just ran out of time on turn 5. So, although, to be honest, I don't know if it would be any better for my opponent if we continued going on, because I could just turn to face that big block of goblins, and I mean, I'll grind through that unit, and I'll probably just put my steam tank into his ferals, and that'd pretty much be it, and I would just get the objective. But I want to thank Lance for a great game. Let's look at the points now. So the final score for this game, I scored 2,515 battle points, or victory points. My opponent got 954. He got my nicest Sun Griffin, the Crossbowman, the Light Infantry, and one of my Riders. So it ends up being a 14-6, which is a pretty strong win. And then I had the objective because I had my one United Sun Griffin on my far right flank, holding on to that spoils of war. So it's a 17-3 Emperor Sonnstahl victory. So it was very strong way to start a tournament. I was pretty excited. I thought I had a favorable matchup in this game. I thought all I needed to do was use the terrain to my advantage with my knights, and I was able to do that. So again, I want to thank one more time Lance for playing. I want to thank you guys for watching this battle report, and please stay tuned for more content from not only this tournament but anything else going on from this channel. All right, see you guys soon.